My name is Chris Detzel, and I'm a director of customer community and engagement. And today's Reltio show is survivorship strategies, configuration, and complex scenarios, as if some of this stuff wasn't already complex, Dimitri. But we have today Dmitry Blinov. He's a senior product manager, and Alexei Sable. He's an engineering manager, and they will be giving a little presentation, but also a demo on how to do some of these complex scenarios. So as usual, keep yourself on mute, ask questions in the chat. I'll make sure that they'll get answered on the show. And then the show will be recorded and shared out to the Reltio community by next week. Just FYI, I am working on more shows coming up. Dimitri is going to add another show, but we haven't done that one yet. But so today's show is on survivorship strategies and configuration and complex strategies. On the 2nd, we are skipping a week next week. So we will not have a show next week, but the next one will be on March 2nd on survivorship strategies, interaction with key MDM functions and services. And then as of now, the next show will be on the 17th, but I am looking at actually putting the show on there right before the week before the 17th, but just haven't done that yet. But it will be 17th is called Transform Dirty Data into Reltio, it's Reltio Cleansers 101. So you guys have been asking for that, so we're going to do it. And then enriching your data with the BVD connector, which is a new enhancement or product that we have, and we want to show you. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to let Dimitri and Alexei get started.
Hello, hi everybody. Thank you for joining for our first webinar. Let me start sharing my screen. So let me explain. We have some adjustments in the not adjustments, but yeah, you can call them adjustments in the agenda and in the team. So first, let me start with the team. Yakov is on vacation, and we have Alexei Sable today. Alexei was leading core team. He is leading a new team, Catalyst, a very cool team. They built all the new features, but for years he was leading the core team and truly being a subject matter expert in the Reltio platform core. Will be helping me a lot today, especially with demo and technical side of it. As usual, Tatiana and I were preparing the materials. So today's webinar is show, Chris, as you asked me to call it, show number 4. And the adjustment in the agenda, slight adjustment in the agenda, we will do exactly what we said we do on the 3rd session. We will do a deep dive into the advanced behavior with the demo. We pushed the discussion about the roles to the last session, number 5. It's, as we started to work on it, we realized this is a pretty big topic, and we cannot fit 2 big topics into a single session. So today, advanced strategies and UI, configuration and UI specifically, and roles will be session number 5. So let's start. This is the agenda. Well, we just been through it. We'll have 2 quick demos. I keep the slide all the time, but the entity resolution is in the core of multi-domain MDM, and this is what we are talking about here, because operational value calculation is in the core of entity resolution, right? So you have, let's refresh. You have 2 structures, data structures in your data storage, crosswalk A with these attribute values attached to it, and crosswalk B with 2 other attribute values attached to it for 2 different attributes, first name and last name. You have your we never store. I'll just repeat that. We never store the information about. We never persist the information about operational values. Information about operational values are always calculated on the fly. So you extract the data via API or UI. You calculate operational values and you get your profile, or in this case called resolved object. So you get your profile. Some values win, some values lose, and as a result, you got your profile with operational values. As I said, calculation of the operational values is in the core of the entity resolution, right? So say you have 2 different entities with their crosswalks and 2 different values for the same attribute. attached or came from, I should say, came from two different data sources represented by two different crosswalks. You have two entities merged by crosswalk, by match rule, first match and then merged, right, by your master data management platform. And you got a winner entity A. It has all the crosswalks. It will get one of the it will get the winner entity URI or entity ID, which is the same thing in Reltio MDM. But the operational values or the final structure of the profile will be defined on each individual attribute level by the operational value calculator. So this is how it works. Operational value calculator is based on the survivorship rules. Survivorship rules are based on the survivorship strategies. An entire process of anti-resolution is based on that. So it's kind of folded structure. We discussed all that in the detail. So this is just a few refresh slides. So all of us on the same page, and we continue into the more advanced topics. It's good to refresh. All of this was discussed on webinar number 1, 2, and 3. As I just said, the configuration of operational value calculation is done in the data model, and it's structured. You have a group of rules. You have number of rules in each group, and rule is based on the strategy, which is taken from a static library of strategies. Let's just look at very sample of simple operational value calculation. You have value 10 from crosswalk A. You have value 8 from crosswalk B. Crosswalk 8 have update date and create date, and same for crosswalk B, right? They have also other parameters, which we just keep them. So first you have your survivorship rule for this defined for this attribute in your model, and it has last update date strategy. But because update date in both cases here is the same, both values wins in this case, right? There will be no single operational value defined by this strategy. So you can define a fallback strategy then, say it will use max value. So the fallback strategy, a fallback rule, which will be based on the max value survivorship strategy. And that one, in this case, will easily define the winner value, right, for the specific attribute, because this is the maximum value. Well, we keep, presenting this type of examples, much more complicated than this, throughout all the webinars we did. But one thing you need to know is always we demonstrated what's called advanced strategy. Because the default strategy in this case, I'll show you, but the fallback strategy will not be used. In this case, if none of the values, defined as a winner out of last update date, it will be picked pretty much randomly. The first one will be picked and defined as an operational value. So we'll talk more about this, and we'll show you which strategies exactly have this advanced behavior. But it's important to know that all the previous examples and I think we said that, I'm repeating it, but they all apply to this advanced strategy, which we now switch to be default, but still I call default the old one, original one. You can call original default. Quick refresh on the library of survivorship strategies, right? We have two types, data source based and data attribute value based. Last update date, source system, oldest value, other attribute winner crosswalk, which defines the winner value of this attribute based on the winner attribute value of the other attribute from a different crosswalk. And then data based of attribute value based strategies, frequency, most frequent wins, aggregation, everything wins, minimal value wins, maximal value wins. Again, I'm just refreshing this. This is nothing new, right? You can refer to our first 3 webinars where we talk about all this in details. And then it is important, like we said a couple of slides ago, that IV calculation is based on the survival strategy rule, which is grouped in the groups. But inside of each survivorship rule, the strategy is a core of it, which defines the behavior, and in the end of the day defines the behavior of the operational value calculator and operational value of each individual attribute, which then, creates the whole resolution process. One thing I'd like to highlight here is the structure of the strategy itself. It's pretty simple because they are static and their behavior is coded into the platform. So all you really need to know about the strategy is it has a URI, which you would use in your rules, in your mappings. So you will say my rule for this attribute will use this URI, meaning it will use this strategy, right? But also it has a label. And label is important here because if you open the UI, and which I'll open in a second, well, maybe in a few seconds, you will not see last update date. You will not see SRCs, right, as we call them. Instead, you will see recency or source system. So you need to kind of understand the mapping of the name here. Aggregation is aggregation, which is cool, right? Frequency is frequency, but sometimes they're different. And not to get lost, just be aware that in UI we show labels rather than actual names of the strategies. And we show them like this. So let me actually switch to the demo. Stop the, how do I stop that? Yes. Stop the slide deck. And I have a, standard profile here. This is the source view. I have different sources, but we only care about source view and profile view today. In the source view, I can see all the sources of Crosswalk that build my specific profile. And here I can see the actual operational values that won. But in this column, I can see all the values, and actually I can see from which crosswalk they came, right? So I can highlight it like this. I can, statically kind of put a hold on this crosswalk and just look. And I'll find out that we are looking at this is our internal system, and basically this is a test tenant, so it's not real data here. But in this test data, this crosswalk tells me that this tenant came, this tenant is owned by different teams, right? From one source tells me that it's MDM team, another source tells me it's Reltio tenant, DevOps, engineering, test. So to this value, I apply, this is the value here, I think. No, it's different attribute values. It just all came from the same crosswalk. Sorry for that. I have this one, test, different values. Let me actually change this test in QA, for example. I'll put it like this, yeah. So two different values came from two different crosswalks here. Environment. How did I define? So I have two values actually for this attribute. How did I define the operational value, right? In this case, it was a source system, which tells me if I open it that, I need to kind of click here. I always misclick. Yeah, the Reltio crosswalk always wins. So the values that came from the Reltio crosswalk here, that one wins, right? One thing I can do is you just, so here it's, if you switch to the configuration of the, let me do a quick time check. Yeah, good. If you switch to the configuration part, how do I configure, what configuration capabilities I have from the UI today? Because in the previous demos, you saw how we configure all the survivorship strategies, rules, and groups from the JSON, right? But how do I do this from UI? So from UI, as you can see, I can select a strategy from the list for a specific attribute type. So if I'll switch a strategy for the environment attribute type of the tenant entity type, it will switch for all of the attributes of all of the entities of that type, or for all of the attributes of this type, for all of the entities of this type. So when I switch that, I don't switch it for just this profile. I switch it across entire tenant. And that is important because, for example, I have other things I can do. I can pin the value here, or I can ignore the value. So if I pin the value like this, and it changed the value because I changed it artificially. But basically, now the value is pinned from this crosswalk, and the winning value, but you cannot see it. It's both of them test, but I can define the winning value by pinning that, right? We discussed it on webinar 1, or I can ignore the value instead again. And I can say, well, just ignore this value and nothing will win. Yeah, this I define on the value level only. That's, I'm working within the profile right now. When I do this here, I'm switching from the profile level to the tenant level. I define it for the entire tenant. I can do other things. I can remove the crosswalk. I can update the crosswalk. It will always change operational values of the specific profile only. The only thing that changes configuration across the entire tenant is this one: selection of the strategy for the attribute type of the entity type. And we are now, just so you know, for the future, we are rethinking this because, well, we have complaints. It's not very, how could I say, intuitive, right? You can easily have someone who has the right to change the strategy, and there will be an impression that the strategy being changed on the entity level, on the profile level, but actually this one changes it across the entire tenant. So as you know, we are working on the new UI, and hopefully this year we will roll out the new UI for the profile. And our plan there, I'm talking about future plans, so no commitments or anything, but our plan there is to actually remove the strategy selection from the profile view and move it to the data modeler, which is available, as I hope you know, in our Reltio console UI. I'll stop right there. Do we have any questions?
We do have one question. Is there any way we can disable this config switch for business users who has write access to edit the data? Because once we change the config, it's going to change survivorship strategy and attribute level, not only specific to a particular profile.
Yeah, so this is what I exactly said a minute ago. This is why we're going to change the UI here completely. But I think you can control it with roles. Alexei, if you can comment on this, if we can control this with roles and do it like read-only and forbid to change the strategy here.
Yeah, it's possible. And moreover, so if you want like to have some specific rules for a different role, you can set up it only for those roles. And you can like add this role to several users. And for different roles, you can have different AV rules, operational value rules. Yeah.
And we will talk about roles in the next webinar, but please ask all the questions so we will prepare answers to them.
Yeah. My only question was, sorry, this is Ananya. So once we give the edit privilege, I think by default, this will appear to those user, right? Whoever is having the edit privilege on, let's suppose, name, they can also come to this page and change the configuration, right?
Yes, if user has this, yeah, you're right. So if user has the right to do the change basically for the data model, they can. I don't think we separate UI and API in this case. Yeah, you can come here and do the change. And eventually you can misclick and change it, yes, and it will be applied across the entire tenant. Yeah. This is a special tenant, by the way. We don't have an edit switcher. I think we normally have capability to just switch to read-only mode, right? So real quick, and I'll be wrapping up, and we will start discussion on the advanced strategies. But this is a profile view, and as we already discussed, right? The profile view, we normally only have operational values. So you will be looking at your profile, the winner values, the survived values, which which is your resolved profile, which is the reason why you have MDM and why. Well, not the only one, but that's like a core capability, right? You will have all your profile resolved. But if you switch to the source, you can kind of see the structure of how it works from survivorship rule and AV calculation perspective. All right, let me switch back to this slide deck and share slides and switch to this. We will do this in the demo mode today. So I just prepared one slide. We started to discuss it on the last session, and I even had more. I cannot say more detailed slide, a slide with more text, which is not helping a lot. But what is the default and advanced behavior? really, the behavior of operational value calculator can be controlled by a parameter in the 10 physical configuration that just has two possible values, default and advanced. Maybe the actual values are different. Normally, customers don't have access to physical configuration, so it's not that important. You will just go to, today, you'll have to go to Reltio support team and ask them to switch. So you tell them default or advanced, they'll understand you immediately. I mean, I didn't specifically copy the actual names of the values. It doesn't really matter. So what is this default and advanced and why we have it historically? Once we created this operational value calculator, operational value calculation and resolution can be pretty complex, as you know. And sometimes you will get scenarios where you did not, after some calculations, you did not define the operational value. So years ago, we had to resolve this somehow, and we just resolved this statically. We defined, pretty much, I can say hard-coded certain behaviors. And I have a specific example here. I'll talk about this, and then Alexei show you the rest of it in the demo. But basically, we decided, in this case, we will do that, and that's it. It's just how platform behaves. And it was working for most of the customers, but sometimes it doesn't work. I'll show you how it will make complete sense to you. So in time, we had to come up with an advanced behavior, which resolves all these conflicts which we collected over years of our customers using Reltio platform. So we just understood we need to do these 5 or 7 things slightly differently when we resolve operational values and provide more advanced behavior. For example, allow usage of fallback strategies in a more extended way to let customers define how it should be. So for specific, and I didn't put it here, but advanced value is applied to 3 strategies only, which is last update date, source system, and oldest value. And I have an example for last update date here. Say you have 2 crosswalks, A and B, and same example, right? So Reltio rule with last update date strategy. But then starting from here, I split the behavior by 2. So left-hand side shows you the default behavior of the calculator, and right-hand side shows you the advanced. And as I told you, we were always talking only about advanced behavior because it just makes more sense and it's more advanced. It allows you to use everything. So in the default behavior, because both of these crosswalks has the same update date, none of the values from none of the crosswalks win, and you will still have 2 values here. So normally in advanced behavior, you'll just put a fallback strategy after it and define, if nothing wins here, what should I do next? You'll define it here. But by default, a first pick internal fallback strategy would be applied. You cannot control it. You cannot redefine it. You cannot forbid it if you have default behavior. It's just there. It will always interrupt the definition of the calculation by a calculator here. It will not allow you to introduce additional fallback strategies. And it will just pick one of the winning values here and make it a winner. So you'll pretty much get a random winner here as a result. This is exactly why, one of the examples why we had to introduce the advanced behavior, which allows you here, you don't have this first pick internal fallback strategy, virtual fallback strategy is not defined anywhere. Instead, you keep both winning values after the strategy, and then you can put your fallback strategy. You can put many of them, right? As you know, you can put filters, you can put any complex behavior here and define your winning crosswalk value here. So to simplify, that's what it is, advanced behavior, and this is why I've introduced it, but there are much more, as I said, 3 different strategies, much more examples. So let's switch to the demo and I'll stop sharing, and Alexei, if you can start sharing.
Yeah, quick question before he starts sharing, or kind of 2-part. So ignored values, so they don't contribute to survivorship anymore, is that right?
Yes. Okay. Same for pinned values. If you pin a value, a recalculation doesn't happen for this attribute. It has pinned value and it will always survive.
Okay, so I think
pin values will be always operational values.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that answers this question, but let me make sure. For pin values of an attribute, survivorship rules do not apply anymore. Is that correct? And
yes.
Okay. And then the pin value will always appear in the OV.
Yes, correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, then it means I can start. Hello, everyone. I'm sharing my screen right now, and we have a prepared entity tenants. My name is Saibel Alexey, and I'm really happy to see you in this show. This is the first show for me, so please don't be hard on me on this. And
that's awesome. Thanks, Alexei, for coming on.
Yeah, so as Dmitry said, so operational values are like one of the most important topic in Reltio. And so the LUD, last updated date, oldest value, and source system, they're one of the most popular strategies in Reltio across all configurations. And so our current default behavior, it's more like an attempt to simplify this behavior. As Dmitry mentioned, if two different values came from two different sources with the same updated time, so Reltio by default randomly picks one of this value just because it wants to show some operational value for a customer. But we started getting some requests in that case if we want to use fallback strategies to make it more complicated. And it was the point where we introduced advanced strategies for last updated date, oldest value, and source system. And right now, I want to show some examples of its behavior. So our first entity will be like, let me post it. And I think it would be much easier to show you directly. Okay, let me get it open. And then, so we are posting basically two entities at the same time, and they are merged by crosswalks to each other. For the first name, we have one value Mike, and for this first name of the second entity, we have a value Michael. And after they merge to each other, we will get an entity with two basically values. And those two values came from the sources with the same created and updated time. So if we can see in the crosswalk tabs, we have created time. And the second crosswalks, we have the same created time. But if you go to a first name attribute, we will see that the one value was picked as a OV true. So it probably would be easier like to go and take a look at the UI. How does it look like? Yeah. So we have a HCP profile. And on the profile page, you can see that it has only one V value, Mike. But if you go to the source tab, you can see that actually we have two values and only one of them are a V. So this is our default behavior, the simplified one. But what if we want to let our customer choose which one it should be? In that case, so we have configuration for the physical. We have an option in the physical configuration, and Dmitry already said that to turn it on, it should be some kind of Zendesk request, like to update this configuration. And inside of this configuration, we have like special parameters, survivorship advanced behavior. And after we apply this parameter, let's get the same entity. Like we didn't change anything for it, but as you can see right now, the example, both values, Michael and Mike, they started becoming a V because they came from two sources with the identical created and updated time. If we go to UI and check what's going on there, let's refresh the page. Okay, so those are values, right? Two AV values. And right now, having two AV values for the first name can be an issue for a customer. But customer can decide what to do next with those values. So with advanced strategies, it's possible to introduce fallback for such cases for the first name. So let's update our configuration with fallback strategy for the first name. So yeah, let me update this configuration. And then we are getting one more time entity. So we, like, as I said, we didn't change this entity. And right now we have Michael as a V, because our fallback strategy for the first name, let's check it. What was the fallback strategy? And then we can say for sure that, okay, so our survivorship strategy is last updated date for first name. But if you have more than one IV value, please go back to the fallback strategies and choose other attribute winner crosswalk strategy and choose it by last name. So this is a dependent attribute, and it has its own winner crosswalk, and based on this crosswalk we will get the crosswalk for the first name attribute. And actually this is how you can control it. So you can introduce as a fallback strategy source system if you prefer some sources, if you like get some kind of fallback case. And you prefer some sources, you can choose this kind of strategy. And if you go back to our UI and update one more time this profile, so we're gonna see that Michael right now is a V, because we are controlling it right now. And I'm stopping here for some questions if you have any.
No, we don't have any
questions. Well, there is kind of one question, but it kind of goes back to Dimitri's. Does the pin ignore only apply for the current rule set?
Not rule set, current value of the current attribute. So it's really isolated on the profile or entity, which is the same thing, and specific attribute and specific value level only. So you when you pin something, you pin it to this specific attribute. And as you know, in Reltio, everything has a unique address in this data structure, right? So attribute has its own URI tied to the crosswalk, which has its own URI tied to the entity, which has its own URI. So this is how you can easily.
The question is, if I have multiple crosswalks and I pin something,
Mm-hmm.
does it apply to all the? I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If I have multiple rule sets and I pin something, do I pin it for every rule set or just the one I currently have?
For every rule set defined for this attribute. So every time, because rule set, it contains two main things: the attribute name and the survivorship strategy applied to this attribute, right? So if you have many, you can have many rules for the same attribute name, for the same attribute, for example, with different filters. We've been through this in the previous webinars, right? But once you pin the value for this attribute in this entity, operational value calculation will not be even applied to this attribute. So everything you defined in your rules, it will be ignored, because operational value calculation will not even start. You'll just get a pinned value and it will win all the time. That's it.
Thanks.
Yeah, and the pinning and ignoring values, it's a manual operation, and we believe it's like really important. So, if a customer wants, instead of having defined by survivorship rules calculated by pinning value, for example, we can go to our source tab, and we see right now is a Michael, is an operational value, and you wanted to make it Mike. You pin it and you go back and you see that immediately. It doesn't matter what kind of survivorship rule you applied for this first name attribute. You will see that after your manual clicking on pin, it became savvy.
Yeah, allows data stewardship on a very granular micro level. You can just define certain values if something goes wrong.
Right.
Right. Let's continue.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go back to our AV strategy. So and we're getting it. And so we mentioned several survivorship rules that behavior for them can be changed with advanced strategies. The second one is the oldest survivorship rule. And this rule has similar behavior. So it simplified by default. And so if you post entities, like two different entities with the first name, with the oldest survivorship rule, you will see pretty much the same behavior like for that, for the LUD. So Mike and Michael, one random was picked because the crosswalk itself from the same. So if you add oldest survivorship rule for advanced strategies and you get it back, you will see that I'll update it. Okay, let me check. One more time. So you will see that actually there should be two operational values that came from, maybe I missed a step. Yeah, sorry for that. So when we post survivorship advanced behavior for last updated date and oldest value, after we get the same entity, we should see the same. Yeah, it applied right now. So that Michael and Mike for the oldest strategy, it became true. And this is also the point that you can control this behavior. So with some fallback strategies, you can define for yourself. So for the source system, so it's a kind of different behavior, and I want to speak a bit more about the source system survivorship rule. For the source system, in the configuration, you actually setting up some the number and some list of sources and the priority of these sources. From what sources you think the value are more important, and sometimes value can go into Reltio from the sources that are not in this list that defined. Let's say that we have sources with a Reltio crosswalk, maybe Twitter crosswalk, but we don't have for the sources survivorship Facebook crosswalk. What's happening in our default behavior? If we post an entity with the first name, and Facebook is not a part of source list for source survivorship rule. So what we'll see? We will see that if it's a single value, it still became a V. It was simplified default behavior. So we also introduced the change in behavior for source system survivorship strategy.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we look at this in the UI, or we'll not see it in the UI?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
I think it will be. Yeah, we should still show it in the UI because it will be very visible.
Okay. Yeah. So we have to think where we are. What exactly? Let me check it. And yeah, so we have Mike as a first name source system attribute. It means, yeah, we have Mike here. Let's go to the source system. And if we click on this, we will see that Facebook is not a part of this huge list of sources.
Facebook is FB is not. I see Facebook somewhere there, but FB is not.
Yeah. This is a FB. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. So for the Reltio, it's actually a lot of about naming the exact name. Yeah. So FB is not a part of source system survivorship rule, and but we can still see that Mike is winning. It's our default simplified behavior. So if we introduced advanced behavior for, let me check it.
So our default behavior is if we only have a value from the source which is not in the list, it will be we will decide that it is an operational value, right?
Yeah. If we have a single value which is not from the list for source system, we will make it a v value because it's a single one.
Yeah. So we don't care. Basically, in this case, no calculation applied. Just because it's a single value, we say that's probably operational. Got it. That's a default value. Yeah. Let's look at advanced.
Yeah. So right now we introduced that source system is a part of advanced behavior, and if we get the same value here, we will see that right now, because the FB source, it's not a part of the source system configuration, it became false. And this is again a great point to use fallback, but not with like more than one OV value, but also we have, let me find it here in the configuration, our default, there are a lot of tabs. So for fallback strategies, we have two criteria. One of them, more than one AV value. In that case, you can trigger the fallback strategy. The other criteria is like 0 or more than 1. In that case, we have to define in our metadata configuration 0 or more than 1, and the fallback strategy starts working here. That's how you can control it as well.
And you can learn about all that and fallback. Yeah, you can learn about all that in fallback strategies. This one or more value, and the second one I forgot, in the second webinar, video and slides. So it's published in the community.
Mm-hmm. And even for the source system, we can have a bit more complicated case. So I mentioned that we can have one value and not from the source list, and this value is always wins. But what if we have two values and all of them are not from the source list? Let's update that we don't have advanced behavior configuration. And after it, so we will post entity with two values from different sources, FB as well, but all two values are not from this list. Let me send it again. Okay, while it's updated, our configuration. So what I'm gonna share the JSON that we want to update. So one value for the first name came from FB. The second value came from FB as well, and they will merge after they like get into Reltio because they have some data provider false crosswalks. So we have a rule in the Reltio that only so unique crosswalks can be applied to entities. So if you post something with a crosswalk value that already exists in some entity, you will immediately merge this information to the same. So it's a bit more information apart from operational value. And let me check if I have my. Yeah, I still have the working token. Yeah, let's update it. Okay, we updated and we are posting these entities. So if we get this entity back, yeah, so right now it's our default behavior. We don't have any advanced strategies for source system. I changed it back. So
let's look at it in the UI as well. Just for
yeah,
it's very visible in the UI. So
I agree. So right now we don't have any like default behavior, and let's go Oh, any advanced behavior, sorry. Yeah, and let's go to see what we are having. So right now we need to find this entity. Yeah, that's it. So we have Michael and Mike from FB source system, and Michael is winning, but FB source system isn't a part of the source system list. And this is like one more simplification that we introduced with the default behavior. So what we're gonna do, actually we're gonna do practically the same. So we add a source system in the advanced strategies list. And after we apply those rules, because FB is not a part of source system, both values should be a false. And then you can introduce as a fallback strategy. That's how you can control it for three different survivorship strategies: last updated date, oldest value, and source system. Yeah, and as Dmitry mentioned, so we have plans to make advanced behavior the default behavior for everybody.
But today it's not. Yeah, but today it's not. So make sure when you have a new tenant and you would like to have advanced strategy, make sure that you have it, because I believe you still by default provision tenants with default strategy. One more thing, you know, on the demo that Alexei just showed, you saw exactly what we were talking about on the previous shows as well, but today I had a slide on it with the red, you know, because we do not persist operational values, they are always calculated on the flight. Even if you have a tenant with, I don't know, 20 million records, every time you get all of your records, individual record or batch of the records, everything is calculated on the flight. So they always consolidated or generated on the flight from crosswalks and attributes actually recorded in the database. You can have in the same data set very easily switch between the behaviors. So you saw how Alexei posted the data set once, he posted these entities once, right? And then he changed the way operational value is calculated. And on the same data set, he doesn't need to repost it or update it. Data set is there. He can change operational values. So you can, this is why you can easily switch structures. You can easily, that gives you a lot of flexibility in the data modeling in general. Right. But you'll have to take care about things like index separately still. Yes.
And make sure if you have, I'm stopping share my screen actually here. And so if you have operational value as a part of matching, so yeah, the changing strategies means that you need to run some kind of rebuild matching tables, periodic tasks or something like this. But yeah, it's working on the fly.
Yeah.
Any question?
As of now, there are no questions. It's kind of a. I think anytime we, present something somewhat new or something complex like this, it's a little, there's a lot to kind of digest. So, but if you do have questions, please post them here or ask. Anything else, Dmitry?
Yes, and the next session, as I already mentioned, but let me explain again, we touch base on both of the topics. Next session will be about, number one is roles, right? So there was a few questions about the roles and how to forbid specific actions. So we have two different roles, a user level role, which controls the behavior of user, and metadata level, roles where we can define visibility of the data and the data access for a specific set of users as well. So I think we will talk about both of this, and that's pretty huge topic. But we will also try to take a second one in the same scope, which is all different types of operations. We touched based on that in the very first webinar, on this very first show, but we will try to go through this as well, like Alexei mentioned, for example, matching, right? How the change of the operation value changes how your data match. Same how it changes how your data is being cleansed. Same, it may change how you search your data or export your data. You can also export and search only operational values versus all values, right? And then if you do that, obviously changing the operational values by changing the strategy or changing the calculator behavior from default to advanced, and vice versa. It changes the result of all of these operations as well. We'll talk about that as well in the next webinar. So if you have any questions on that topic, post them here or post them after this webinar. We'll prepare answers for them upfront. Thank you all. That's it for today.
Thanks, everyone.